please, Jonathan. Well, a year ago, April, this is what Max Kampelman said. He used to be President Reagan's chief arms negotiator. Unfortunately, the goal of globally eliminating all weapons of mass destruction is today not an integral part of American foreign policy. It needs to be put back at the top of our agenda, and I agree very much with him on this. And a year ago this month, President Vladimir Putin proposed talks with the U.S. on replacing START 1, which is set to expire in 2009. Unfortunately, the Bush administration really hasn't picked up that offer. Next slide, please. START 1 is set to expire in 2001. It limits the U.S. and Russia to 1,600 delivery systems and 6,000 active operational warheads each. But with the presidential election coming up in 2008, if we don't do something about it pretty soon, it's going to expire because the first year of most presidencies don't get into things like this. Unfortunately, President Bush has already been sending signals that he's going to let START expire, which I think is unfortunate. Next, please. More recently still, in January of this year, George Shultz, former Secretary of State, William Perry, former Secretary of Defense, Henry Kissinger, you all know, Sam Nunn, former senator and chairman for many, many years of the Senate Armed Services Committee. These are not a bunch of peaceniks. Came out with an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal titled "A World Free of Nuclear Weapons." And why was it that these four statesmen are now saying we should have a world without nuclear weapons? What's changed? And I think one of the things that's changed is they're starting to worry that nuclear weapons could be used against us, something that we didn't used to worry about in the same way. Next, please. There is, to President Bush's credit, the Moscow Treaty, the Strategic Offensive Arms Reduction Treaty, which was agreed to in May of 2002, one of the first things that President Bush did as president, would reduce the stockpiles in both Russia and the United States to about 2,000 nuclear weapons from the current levels, active. There are no verification provisions in this treaty, and the reductions that are required to be made don't have to be permanent. Warheads can be put in kind of on the shelf in reserve status and then later redeployed. And unfortunately, the reductions that are required to be made don't have to happen until the treaty expires at the end of 2012, and then the whole treaty goes away. So it's kind of a strange treaty, but President Bush did accomplish that. Part of the backdrop here is that nuclear weapons, there's a lot of information about them out there now on the internet and in other places. I just pulled this off of an article about a year ago from the magazine Nature. But you can find all kinds of stuff like this on the internet, and that means that terrorists and others can find it too. The trend in nuclear weapons is that something that was a source of strength in World War II and during the Cold War is becoming a liability, and the trademark of weak and threatened and failed states such as North Korea. So there's a balance shifting here. And when people like Henry Kissinger and George Shultz and all say we should be working towards a world without nuclear weapons, that's what they're concerned about. This shows the missile facilities in North Korea. Quite a few of them, as you'll see. Each one of these little symbols is another facility. Next, Jonathan. This is the nuclear facilities, these little radiation symbols. Again, you'll see that there's quite a few of them, different kinds. Some are research, Some are production, some of them are mines. So they're not all the same kind of facility, but quite a few. And if you look at the situation in Iran, here are the missile facilities. Again, quite a few, and again, different kinds of things. Some are production, some are developing guidance systems, some are launch facilities. They're all different kinds, but there's not just one. And when you look at the nuclear facilities, again, you see there are quite a few. There's often speculation in the press that we ought to, just attack Iran's facilities, although it's often described as facility, as though there's just one. And I think you can see here that you have the question of whether you're going to attack them all, and then you've really got, I think, World War III. Next slide, please. This is the uranium enrichment facility at Natanz. And this picture is several years old now. Some of these facilities here and around there are now partly buried, covered over with an overburden of dirt. So I use this picture because you can still see the pieces, whereas in the most recent pictures that you can find on the internet, it's hard to tell there's as much there as there is. All together here, in the facilities in Natanz, there's about 1 million square feet of infrastructure. It's quite a large facility. Hans Blix blames the U.S. for the situation we're getting ourselves into. He notes that while the reaction of most states to treaty violations was to strengthen and develop the existing treaties and institutions, he's talking about Iran and North Korea here, the U.S., the sole superpower, has looked more to its own military power for remedies. Next, please. So we have a situation in the United States and in the world today where the United States is basically saying, do as I say, not as I do. We didn't like it when our parents said that when we were kids, and this is not lost on the international community. But it is actually current U.S. nuclear weapons policy that we're going to do one thing but expect other countries to do something different. Obviously, it doesn't wash with them. It doesn't go over with them. And increasingly, the special rights and privileges accorded to the 5 original nuclear weapon states by the Non-Proliferation Treaty are being challenged by other states, as we see in Iran today. This is a quote from a couple of years ago, but I find it really remarkable because it was something from a speech that a member of Congress, David Hobson, a good Republican from Ohio, made at the National Academy of Sciences. This is a pretty conservative gentleman, and he says, I view the Advanced Concepts Research Proposal, I'll touch on what that was in a minute, the robust nuclear Earth penetrator study, the effort to reduce the nuclear test readiness posture to 18 months, as provocative and overly aggressive policies that undermine our moral authority to argue that other nations should forgo nuclear weapons. We cannot advocate for nuclear nonproliferation around the globe and pursue more usable nuclear weapon options here at home. That inconsistency is not lost on anyone in the international community. Quite an interesting remark, I think.